Welcome back to another class on Halacha for women. We are in the sefer called Otzar Denim by Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef Shlita. Today we want to see an important halacha, but it's not relevant to women. However, it is relevant to men. You might ask yourself a question, if it's not relevant to us, why are we learning it? Very simple. If you're married, your husband might not be doing this halacha. If you're not married, maybe your father's not doing this halacha. Maybe your uncle aren't doing this halacha. Maybe your brother isn't doing this halacha. So therefore, even though as we'll see today, Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita is going to say women are exempt from this one halacha. However, it's important to note that the men are. So if you can pass over this message to the men, and you'll see why it's important, you should do so, because a lot of people, they look for segulot. And one of the biggest segulot is to follow the Shulchan Aruch. People run to rabbis to get berachot. One of the biggest blessings is to follow the Shulchan Aruch. And I want to read for you, before I do the Otzar Denim, I want to read for you what the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Reish Pei in Halacha Aleph. That's Siman 285, in Halacha number 1 in the Rav Chaim edition. The Shulchan Aruch says, Af api she'adam shomea kol haTorah kula kol Shabbat b'tzibur. Even though a person listens to the entire Torah every single week with the congregation, chayav likrot la'atzmo bechol shavua parshat oto shavua. He is obligated to recite to himself every single week the whole parsha of that week. Shnai mikra ve'echad targum. He has to recite Shnai mikra ve'echad targum. Now, what does Shnai mikra ve'echad targum mean? Very simple. Mikra means chumash, targum means translation. Where the Onkelos, he translated it into Aramaic. Back then they spoke Aramaic. So what did he do? Not everybody was able, not everybody was able to understand the language of the text of the chumash. So what did Onkelos do? He went ahead and he translated it into Aramaic. Now I want to just show you how this works. If you take any regular chumash, you'll see over there, let's say you begin with Bereshit. It begins with Bereshit and it continues, but it never repeats itself. But in a Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum chumash, how do they do it? If you see over here, it says Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum. Now Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum, how does it work? If we pay close attention over here, it says Bereshit bara Elokim, right? Bereshit bara Elokim. You continue here again, it says Bereshit bara Elokim. So you have the bigger font, is the first time you're going to say the verse from the Chumash. Then you have the smaller font, again you're going to repeat exactly the same thing what you said in the bigger font. But then you also have the Targum, Bekadmin, right over here. So basically what you have over here is, in these type of Chumashim, what you have is, you're saying the verse 3 times before you get to move on to the other verse. So basically, if you look into any parsha, doesn't matter, let's say parsha Miketz, same thing, same concept. As you guys can see, the bolder letter, the smaller font, and then you even have the smaller font. Right? You have the big font, the small font, and then the smaller font. So the big font and the medium font are Shnai Mikra. Those are the 2 verses from the Torah. The smallest font is already Targum. So the Shulchan Aruch is telling us here like this, that even though a person listens to the whole Torah every single week with the congregation, let's just take, for example, Parshat Lech Lecha. You listen with the congregation from the Chazan, nevertheless the Shulchan Aruch says there is an obligation on every single man to recite that parsha of the week with the congregation, meaning like this. Let's say this week, let's say today, it's not Lech Lecha this week, but let's just say today is Lech Lecha, this week is Lech Lecha. The person is going to begin on Yom Rishon, let's say on Sunday. Now he has to be able to do it during the week, the parsha Lech Lecha, and he has to finish it before the Chazan is going to recite parsha Lech Lecha on Shabbat. So basically he has 7 days to go ahead and make up the weekly parsha. So a lot of times, since, by the way, it's not an easy feat to do, because it takes, depending on the length of the parsha, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So if it's hard for some men to do it, what do? They break it down. So we have 7 aliyot, we have 7 portions that we read in the Torah. Instead of doing everything on Friday Eve before Shabbat, what do? They break it down. On Sunday they're going to do the first portion, Monday second portion, Tuesday third portion, Wednesday fourth portion, Thursday fifth portion, Friday sixth portion, Saturday seventh portion. So since they break it up, it makes it easier. Nevertheless, the best way to do it is on Erev Shabbat after davening with your talit and tefillin. That is the best way to do it. Do it everything in one shot. Again, if it's hard, you can also do the way I just explained on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now, Rabbi Dahan brings down Rav Chaim Igal, where in the Sefer Chazon Ovadia, where he says that even if a person is a Talmud Chacham and all he does is learn Talmud and poskim, meaning Talmud Bavli and the Shulchan Aruch, that's all he does, day in and day out, we would have thought to say that he's exempt from learning Torah, because not from learning Torah, we would exempt him from doing Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum because he is already fully invested in Torah. Comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, no, the obligation applies even if you are the biggest Talmud Chacham. Everybody's obligated to follow this halacha. So if the biggest Talmud Chacham is obligated in doing this halacha, how much more so a person who's not a Talmud Chacham, a person who's unfortunately not so learned, how much he has an obligation to go ahead and do Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum. And a lot of men, unfortunately, either don't know about this halacha, so therefore they don't do it, or either they know and they just don't do it because they think it doesn't apply to them. It's not applicable as much as to, they think it applies to the rabbis or to the religious people. No. This halacha applies to all men across the board. Your secular, religious, Orthodox, Hasidic, Ashkenazic, Sephardi, the biggest rabbi of the generation, doesn't matter. Once you hit the age of 13, you are obligated, there's an obligation on you. However, even before 13, you should try to educate your children to do Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum so they could get used to it, because there is a mitzvah of educating our children in mitzvot. Rabotai, what is the Segulah? What is the benefit of doing Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum? A lot of people, they run to rabbis. A lot of people, they pay big money just to get blessings. The rule is like this. Whenever you follow the Shulchan Aruch, that's when you're getting blessings. Whenever you're going the ways of Torah, that's when you're being blessed. However, over here comes the Mishnah Berurah, and he says on this halacha that anybody's going to go ahead and do Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum, do you know what he's going to be blessed with? V'chol ha'mashlim parshiyotav im hatzibur. Anyone who's going to complete the weekly parsha with the congregation, me'arichin lo yamav u'shenotav. It's a Gemara, he says over here Gemara, but it's brought down in Masechet Berachot, that they're going to lengthen your days and your years. So a person who wants long life, Rabotai, Shnai Mikra V'Chat Targum. And I'll tell you something, especially when you don't understand what you're reading, it is hard. It is hard. So therefore, in my humble opinion, try to ask your local rabbis to go over the Siman and Siman Reish Pei Hei Halacha Aleph. There's a lot of leniency how you could go about it and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, you have to be able to do Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum every single week. That means by Simcha Torah, you have completed the entire Torah, and that's a great accomplishment. So we see over here, Rabotai, a person, whoever is going to do Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum, he's going to get long life. Instead of running around and paying big money, Rabotai, do what the Shulchan Aruch says, and that's how you're going to be blessed. Now, let's see what Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita has to say on this halacha when it comes to women. Isha pitura melomar bechol Shabbat Shtam Mikra V'Chat Targum. Women are exempt from saying every single week Shnaim Mikra V'Chat Targum. This halacha of Shnaim Mikra V'Chat Targum is only applicable to men. Doesn't matter, Rabotai, secular, not secular, rabbi, Talmud Chacham, men across the board. Once you are over 13, meaning once you hit the age of 13 and on, you are obligated in this halacha fully. You need to complete the weekly parsha. Now I do want to bring out an important point. The Mishnah Berurah brings down in Sivkat and Aleph, he says like this, that let's say this week is Parshat Lech Lecha. You're not allowed to do Parshat Lech Lecha prior to this week, and at the same time, you shouldn't do it later than this week. You want to try to finish it mamish during this week before the Chazan of the synagogue is going to go ahead and recite the Kriyat Torah of Parshat Lech Lecha that week. So basically, you're going to start on Yom Rishon on Sunday, and you want to finish Parshat Lech Lecha by Shabbat. What happens if you didn't finish? There are leniencies out of this. You could do it later on and so on and so forth. That's why I said, let the rabbis teach your husbands or your brothers or your fathers or your uncles on how to go about this halacha, because it's a lot. It's a whole chapter. It's not just one little halacha. Same thing, let's say if it was Parshat Noach. You shouldn't do Parshat Noach prior to this week. You want to start on Sunday and you want to finish by Shabbat. You don't want to do it prior to the week, and you don't want to do it after the week. The best way is to do it in the week that the Parsha falls out on. And I'll just give an example. Somebody one time said, Rabbi, wouldn't it be easier for me to go ahead and read all the 52 Parshiyot in one shot? Let's say it's going to take me a month, but every day I'll do it and I'll finish all the 52 Parshiyot. So this way I'm free the next 11 months. That you cannot do. The Parshiyot have to be said in their proper time. Okay, so therefore we're going to conclude with this. Rabotai, let's just do a small review. Shnai Mikra. So remember, the siman for this is like this. Reish Pei Hei Halacha Aleph. Now this is the siman, which is basically 285. Halacha number 1. In siman Reish Pei Hei Halacha Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says, Shnai Mikra Targum is an obligation to every single person once he hits the age of 13. You have to finish Shnai Mikra Targum during that week before the Chazan is going to start reading in the Sefer Torah the Parsha of that week. What is Shnai Mikra? Shnai Mikra literally means 2 verses from the Torah, Vechatargum, which is the Targum which was translated by Onkelos into Aramaic. One who does Shnai Mikra Echad Targum is guaranteed long life. And the obligation is even if you are the biggest Talmud Chacham. And most importantly, women are not obligated in the mitzvah of Shnai Mikra Echad Targum. Have a great day. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen ve'amen.